As we enter the summer months in the crypto space, often the summer months are kind of boring with price action. Now, what does boring mean? It means it's trading sideways, sometimes even trending down a little bit. Now, 2 years ago, we did have a DeFi summer where everything in the DeFi space went absolutely crazy. That's a little bit unusual. What does this summer hold and what do we think will happen? Well, we have an expert joining us today, Paul, who is a price analysis expert that joins us on Thursday's videos. And we're looking forward to his thoughts on the Bitcoin market, as well as all the stuff playing on the macro field that impacts the crypto space. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. If you like money in crypto and you're looking for a real investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor, neither is Paul. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul is an investor in many, many things. And I do own or plan to own most of what I bring up on this channel and that I talk about, because I don't talk about the crypto projects I believe in. There's over 19,000 of them. I particularly like to talk about the ones that I like and think will do well. Special shout out to our Patreon members. We do have a private Discord there. Patreon members get access to. Make it rain on that like button. Strap in for the show. Let's welcome Paul from DeFinity.
Hi guys, great to be here. Markets might be quiet, but there's always stuff to look at. So I'm looking forward to looking at the audience picks.
Yeah, quiet is often like I call quiet boring because it gets kind of boring and people go to sleep. And often when it's boring or trading sideways, that's when things have pulled back and they're on anywhere from a good deal to a great deal. And a lot of people miss out because it is kind of boring.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's you've always got to be vigilant, and that's part of the game in crypto. I think you've said it a few times over the past few weeks and months that part of it is you've got to just turn up. You've got to keep looking at the markets. Sometimes they're going to be in raging bear markets. Sometimes it's going to be boring and going nowhere, and then you'll get the raging bull market. But if you don't keep watching it, you'll miss the big moves. So at times like these, yeah, we can, I suppose, it makes the job of analysis a little bit harder. I'll be honest with you. It means that you've got to kind of look and look again, and usually you get sort of contradictory signals, something saying bullish, something saying bearish, and you've got to see which one of the two is going to win out. But after that, things settle down, and then you get the really great opportunities, and we don't want to miss those. So we've got to keep our eyes on the prize, as it were.
Yeah, it's a great time to be researching, finding the stuff, finding the gems. And what's funny about these undiscovered gems or the things that sometimes run is they look a lot like an unpolished gem. They're sitting there and you're like, oh, look at this. I think this has some real value to it. It does once it gets all polished out. And then, like, when everyone realizes it, that's when the price is already high. So, part of gem hunting and looking for things that might do well in the future that aren't doing well now is you're kind of looking past some of the market sentiment now and trying to guess how it might change and what, though everything's down, when things turn around, what's going to do well. And that's a lot of what this gem hunting when things are down is all about.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've been looking at the macro themes that have been driving the markets, and one of those has been the rise of yields, and those are still moving up. The dollar's still edging high, although not at the same kind of ferocious pace that it was doing before. So we
Would you
really
mind
need to
showing
see the
that
dollar.
chart? I want to look at it. I
Yeah,
love
sure.
your analysis on this. It really has deepened my understanding.
Well, there's two things. One thing I wanted to show you this week that I know will be close to your heart is the price of lumber. So if I could show you that, and you might wonder why I want to show you the price of lumber. Well,
Mhm.
lumber prices reflect the American economy because of, or the housing market, because of course you need a lot of lumber to make houses. So when this goes down, it's kind of a insight into the activity in the housing market, and we know that a lot of that is driven by interest rates. And I'm looking for this to. I've been looking at this for a long time, and we've seen some big waves up and down. And this current down wave, I'm thinking will get towards this 454 area, which is massive support, but it's on the way down. You look at how it's going lower. So I think activity is dropping, and this is what effectively will be driving the decisions of the Fed. going forward. Now, we know June, they're going to pretty much raise by 50 basis points. But it's a question of what will they do and what will they say after that. My feeling is they're going to talk a good game about raising interest rates because they're worried about inflation. But gas prices are going up, food prices are going up, the housing market is slowing down, interest rates are starting to bite. This will be a problem. So this is the chart of US 10-year yields and the money that's required to borrow, for that 10-year, 20-year mortgage period. So when you go to the bank, it's set on around this price. So when people go and say, oh, well, interest rates are only 0.25%, why can't I get a mortgage at that rate? It's because they're not pricing it off the short-term rate, they're pricing it off the long-term rate. So this is still going up, and we had a little bit of a correction. It looks a bit brief here, and it's heading back towards this 3.25%, which was one of our targets at DeFinity. And we're looking for potentially a break of that towards 3.6%. But I think we're getting towards the end of the move here. And that applies also to the US dollar, which has had a correction in a very similar way and is starting to edge up now. So I think going into this Fed meeting, what we'll probably see is the dollar will get bid up ahead of it, and then it will turn around afterwards. We get a buy the rumor, sell the fact, and it will come back down again for a bigger correction, and then we'll take it from there. Now, it's also possible that the dollar could just go straight down. This is some really good support here, and it has weakened in some places and strengthened in others. So is that kind of fractured market that I was talking about earlier does seem to be in play at the moment. But if we break below this level here, 101 sort of 30, which was our previous support, we were expecting a bounce there. But if that gets taken out, I think we'll see a move towards 100 and maybe a bit lower. That could allow, if that happens, it could allow a little bit of a relief rally in some of the crypto assets. And it's mainly being driven by interest rates, but it'd be reflected in the US dollar. And so we might see a kind of technical relief rally, like you say, because not many people are expecting it and they're kind of sitting on the sidelines. But again, there is some kind of conflicting information in the charts of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it's not cleared up yet. So we really need to see those break out, give some clear signals before we can determine where the sentiment is going to be bullish or bearish over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch. Bitcoin was birthed in a crisis time period like this, 2007, 2008, 2009. And so we're kind of back to that when the housing market is probably finally turning around. It's been up only since 2010 in US, some parts of Canada, and a little bit of Mexico. And probably in Europe, though I haven't followed Europe very closely at all. And so things don't go up forever. They eventually come back down. We're seeing that in the lumber prices. Thank you for sharing that chart, because that reflects the turnaround that's starting to happen in the real estate market. As prices have gone up for loans, that's finally cooling this real estate market that has been absolutely crazy. And as real estate market falls, we'll see. I mean, inflation, what was interesting about that is inflation is really high on oil and food and other things, but then lumber has come down almost. That was quite a sharp fall from its peak. So it's nice to see lumber coming down. And so it makes the cost of like expanding your house, adding a porch on the back cheaper, or just little do-it-yourself projects, or even building new houses.
Well, it should do if they pass on the falls, as it were, but they don't always.
Right. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. If real estate starts to fall, then there's a lot of people that chase what has been happening. My wife and I were out doing some things, and we talked to this young guy, and he's like really excited. He has been studying real estate investing. He's really excited to get started in real estate investing. So we're talking to him. We're like, you might want to sit on the sidelines for a few years. Oh yeah, but it's great. And it's like, it has been going up for 12 years now. And things don't just go up, they turn around. And it is a really bad time to learn to be a real estate investor right at the top of the market as things are falling. I like to buy when it's boring, when people are saying how bad it is, and then take that ride up. And there's a reason why I moved out of real estate investing completely a year ago, and I completed selling off the rest of my properties, putting them in crypto, because real estate doesn't just go up, it does go down, and that is not a fun ride to take. And crypto has these accelerated cycles. We have been on this down market now since, gosh, November last year. And at some point, it'll turn around. Some of the prices have come down 85, some 95%, some 99%. So we're already hitting lows from the highs like we saw last bear market. Does that mean it can't go lower? No, it can, it can always go lower. It just means a lot of those retracements have happened already. And that has me excited about the crypto market. Do you mind if we
Absolutely.
take a look at the Bitcoin chart, which has been fairly like boring, just trading range bound?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the Bitcoin chart, and we're waiting for a completion of this consolidation phase. So, for those of you that are just tuning in for the first time, we were watching this collapse into this Fibonacci support. And normally, at the end of a trend, you get this final panic where everybody sells their positions and the market turns around. So, what we were talking about on the show was how the market would go sideways for a bit and then should accelerate upwards. But it took its time. It didn't happen very quickly, which was a bit of a suspicious situation, because when the market wants to go, it tends to go very quickly. So it did have a brief move up and then a straight back down again. It's really confusing price action. It's just stuck in this range. We're waiting to see whether it can squeeze higher, which I think it may try to do over the next week or so. But I'm sort of less confident that this is the low. It's a low, but is it the low? I don't know yet. So it's very much not changed from sort of a few weeks back. So we're stuck in this kind of sideways consolidation oscillation, and that's not really enough for us to confirm that we're in a base. I mean, it's great that it's not going down anymore. That was kind of step one, but step two is it needs to go higher. Now, this is a chart of Ethereum, which has got what's called a classic descending triangle pattern. And these are usually very, very reliable. So you have a downward trend. Market has actually spiked up here, as you can see, but it's continued to test its support. Now, that is usual. That's like what you'd expect to see in a descending triangle. Now, the signal for this to complete is a break of the low. So 17, sort of 1820 or 1700 around there. If you look back at how far this support goes back, it goes back a long way. It's really hitting that, and it is rock solid for now. So it becomes far more important if a level keeps getting tested like this, because if it breaks, you get a build up of stops below it, and potentially you'll see a very sharp move down. So some of the altcoins were looking a little bit like this. They went down and then went straight back up again. So it's almost like we're playing two steps ahead in the chess game, where the stops get hit, but the market turns around again. So a straight call on this is it should break this low and it should go back down again. If we're still talking about it being in this triangle, descending triangle next week, the chances of it going down are very much diminished, because one of the things about a continuation pattern is it's a bit like being in a train at a station. It's a pause while it's on a journey. If it takes too long, everyone gets out and they find something else. So if this train doesn't move downwards, and this is in the psychology of the bears, so if the bears don't get a downward move, then they're going to exit their positions, and that will make the market go back up again. This resistance line up here is what we would class as the failure of the pattern. If it takes that out, then it's no longer a descending triangle, and we can talk about a potential short-term base. So we're kind of really stuck between two levels that are getting closer and closer together. The market's being painted into a corner here, and we're waiting to see what will be the main breakout. I was hoping last week that we'd have the resolution by this week, but it seems like it wants to continue for a bit more.
Yeah, awesome. Great analysis. I wondered if we could turn to some of the blue chip blockchains. I had Solana on the list, but I wonder if we could take a look at Cardano and Solana.
Yeah.
Now, this was a matchup we did late last year, and we did a video on a Solana versus Cardano, and they have very different fundamentals behind them. Solana is kind of like a let's code and just let's move fast, and if things break, then we'll just try to fix it and get it out there so that people can build on it. And Cardano took a very slow, methodical approach. So Cardano generally is running to a lot less blockchain errors than Solana. And let's look at their price action versus each other and see how they're doing.
Now, I'm really glad you asked about this, because I think we talked about this spike down when it hit this consolidation here. You see this breakout point? There was loads of support. It spiked into it and then turned around. Now, Cardano, we talked a lot about it being ahead of the game in terms of the downward trend, unfortunately. There were a few false dawns along the way down, but this had fallen earlier than some of the other markets. So potentially it could come out of the bear market quicker and maybe lead the market up. Now, I was talking about things that are conflicting, and this is one of them. See, so this had made this downward kind of descending triangle, which normally was associated with a break lower. And from a broader perspective, you would have said, well, the trend is down and it's been consistently down. So shorting it into this low and expecting it to break would have been a strategy I'm sure people would have done. But look what's happened. It's turned around very sharply. This is why I think we've got to be very careful. If this thing turns around, if the majors turn around, you'll probably see one or two bull moves, or sharp upward moves that will catch, even the bears on the back foot, because they'll have gone short on a break and it'll just turn. So this price action here is very unusual. It should have continued down. It's actually moving up ahead of other markets as well. So it's showing relative strength. Now, whether it'll be sustained or not, again, is still very tentative. So we can't start jumping up and down and loading the boat that we talked about a few weeks ago. We can't load the boat yet, but we can say that it's relatively performing very well. I would like to see it trade through this 75 cents area to confirm that it's basing. There's a lot of resistance now between 75 cents and 92 cents. So there's a lot of people who are holding it, who are looking for a rally just to bail out their positions. We know that because you've got to be underwater if you bought it at any time this year and towards the later end or latter end of last year. That's just what the trend is looking like. Like, we know the long-term outlook could be positive, but the short-term outlook, for shorter-term traders, they will be looking to bail out potentially. So we want to see how the market reacts. But this is making me think that there will be some form of short-term rally, even if that does kind of fail around here and we get one more big move down, and that's the final move. So I'm looking for a final move somewhere. There's not enough broad kind of confirmation to say that it's going to happen everywhere. But I like the fact that this is potentially moving up against the rest of the market. If we compare that to Solana, and we obviously we can come back to it, but Solana again is looking exactly like that descending triangle pattern that we're seeing in the Ethereum chart. So here we've got the downward price action. There's the low. It rallies, comes down. Each rally is sold into, and there will be some technical traders who are looking to sell this on a break of 35.50. I can guarantee that, because that's the low and because this looks like a descending triangle. Now, as I said, 2 steps ahead, we'll look for a break. If that break fails, i.e. if it hits the stops and then turns around again very quickly, that will be a warning sign. We can also put in a trend line here to show the level where it will fail. So if you look at how many times it's hit that line, this is an important line on its own. So if it can get back through this line, then there's a short-term rally to be had. Again, we've got to speak in sort of little steps for the moment, because we can't confirm a low until we've got a proper base. Well, from a technical point of view, we need a proper base to confirm the low. And that would happen if we got through this 60 level and ultimately back over this sort of 80 level here, which is major resistance. So we can't call that yet. We can say there's potential for a move down to hit stops. We know that there was some bearish information out this week, and considering, I think the market held up very well. And it's, as you said, there's a expectation that things may or may not work because you're at the cutting edge of technology, and if people who invest in it understand that, then I think that's a good thing, that people know what they're getting into. But given the short-term problems that they've had, I would have expected this to already have gone down, and it hasn't. So we are at a very interesting technical level, and it's very similar to Ethereum. So we'll see how this trades going into next week. If it doesn't break this low by this time next week, I would be expecting it to turn back up, because time runs out on these descending triangles where obviously it goes from bearish to bullish.
Interesting analysis. Thank you, Paul. Yes, Solana, perhaps some of the, I guess, lowered expectations are baked into the price. We just covered that their blockchain failed for the second time in the past 30 days and had to be shut down for 4 hours because of a bug that needed to be addressed and fixed. And I think by now everyone's kind of expecting that. Last September, when there was a lot of hype about it, and then there was a big launch pad that launched across many, many different launch pads, a big project called SolChicks. It ended up crashing Solana's chain, which we're really not that used to, because we're used to the blockchains working pretty well. I mean, ETH has been working pretty reliably for a long time. So to have a blockchain crash like that was somewhat, especially a big one with lots of hopes, I guess a shock. But now that it's happened so many times, and the price has retraced like 85% from its highs. And so, yeah, it's probably really baked into the price. People now expect Solana still has a long ways to go, and they're not near the 50,000 transactions per second that they were stating. I think when SolChicks launched, I think it crashed at around 600 or 700 transactions per second, which is still like 60 times faster than what ETH is at, but a long way from what they were billing it as. Let's take a look at some of these lower cap altcoins. These are audience picks for us to look at. And speaking about Solana, why don't we look at SolEnd?
Sure. Yeah, and that's great sort of background on the Solana coin, because really I don't know anything about the psychology behind it. I just look at the chart and I just hear various bits of information. So it was really interesting to hear people who are closer to it, understand it more, that are saying the difference between what the psychology between Cardano and Solana. So I got that from you. So thank you for explaining that. So SolEnd is if we can see this chart here, it's really still in a downward trend, unfortunately. And we do need a consolidation or a sideways period to show that it's based out before I can go long. We did have this period here, which was pretty good. I mean, it lasted a few days. We had an attempt to move lower, which was a bit like that descending triangle. So there would have been some technical traders shorting it through here, which failed. It went back up again. Now, why it would have done that and not moved higher is a little unusual, but in the markets, we say anything's possible. And then it rebroke the low and has continued down. So the first kind of recovery point that I want to see it get through is this $1.04 area, because that was the major low. Now it could be building into some form of reversal pattern, something that many technical analysts do is they kind of invent reversal patterns. So they invent a head and shoulders or a double bottom or something like that, and it's a dangerous game, because what you should really do is wait for the pattern to complete before you say it's a reversal pattern. So for me, I would not be looking to get in unless it can get through this $1.13 area. And whilst it's in this downward trend, I'd just be waiting. So it's the trend is too clear for now. I accept that a lot of good projects are becoming extremely cheap, but I'm using my discipline. I have to wait.
Yeah, makes sense. I really like it at this price. Now, this is one I'm massively, massively down on. I'm probably down 85% on my position, which is a sucky place to be in the short term. A little bit of, I guess, context to that is sometimes you're down before you're way up. And SolEnd I like. Let me share my screen because some of these backers are really good. This is one of the reasons I was really interested in SolEnd, and I don't know where the selling pressure is coming from, since it seemed like what I could find, a lot of the pre-sale tokens are really locked up. Now, maybe the foundation or something behind it, or some of the ecosystem tokens, are what's driving that price down. But Coinbase Ventures is an investor behind them, Alameda Research, and the Solana Foundation. So they have absolutely the right backers behind it. And this is the type of project I really, really like when it gets cheap. And so for me, it's a buy. I'm going to look at what I can free up in order to buy some more of this. The market cap's only at 17.5 million, the fully diluted valuation at 90 million. This is highly interesting to me, and it sucks to be down so much. A little bit of context, I started buying Cardano during the crypto winter. I think my first buy was at 12 cents, which is really disappointing when it bottoms out at 1.7 cents, and really exciting when, Cardano hit $3. And so I did keep dollar cost averaging in as it got a little bit lower and then a little bit lower, and it did bottom out at 1.7 cents, but it probably meant my average cost per Cardano was somewhere between 5 or 6 cents, which put me in a really good place when it went to, $3. And it went a little bit higher than $3. And so that is the hard part, right? When you're buying, when it's boring like this, is sometimes you buy and then it gets cheaper, and then it gets cheaper, and then it gets cheaper. But I particularly like ones with really good backing like this, and have done well with some of these ones that have good backing and that they're earlier projects. I bought one called XPNET 2.5 years ago, before most people knew what XPNET was, and I bought some land. It was really unfortunate over the next 12 to 18 months to watch the value of what I paid for the land go down to about a third of what I paid for it. And then really exciting when it went up over 100x of what I had paid for it. And unfortunately, I sold at 100x because it went about 1200x. And so my little $4,000 investment turned into about $400,000, which nobody would complain about, except for when you could have sold it about 3 or 4 months later for about $5 million. And that's when you're like, dang it, I wish I had timed that one a little bit better. Though it's a good problem to have. So SolEnd for me is a buy at this price, and it was a buy at earlier prices. I didn't expect it to go so low. I would have kept waiting, but you're right about that price on the chart that you're showing, Paul. That would be a perfect head and shoulders if it plays out that way, and that's a really big if as to whether it'll play out that way. It's way too early to tell. But for me, I look at the market cap, I look about the long term, and I dollar cost average when it gets better. Paul and I have very different trading approaches, and his works fantastically well and works well with his personality, and mine works well for what I do. See, Paul has lots of different things he could be putting his money into. So if the crypto market is poor, Paul has like 15 different options of different markets he can be in, waiting for just the right timing of where he picks it up and the period that he holds it in. For me, I put it in when it's down, and I'm patient and I wait for it to do well. So as to what is your approach? That'll be vary for different people. But what I love having Paul on here is sharing his thoughts and the way he does it, because maybe my approach isn't the way you want to do it. And Paul's approach also works very, very well.
I just try and keep things simple personally. It's because I can't do the sort of research that you guys do. And, I take my hat off for people who can do this sort of analysis in order to get into all the details and the data of whether something's a good project or not. I know that doesn't guarantee success, but for me, I have to simplify it. And yeah, so, and you're absolutely right. Whoever's watching, you've got to try and work out what works for you. So if you like technicals or fundamentals or a mixture of the two, great. And I think at some point you have to decide what's going to be your main method of analysis, because if you are using the fundamentals, then there are times when the technicals will say something completely different. So, for example, you'll be able to pick lows that I just won't see. I will not see those lows. I will have a cushion of the market hitting a low and then reversing. So I'll be late. So you'll be in there and I'll be chasing it, while you're just sitting back and watching me sort of play catch up. But that works for my personality, and I don't mind not trying to pick the low. But if you're willing to sort of invest in the long term and you're confident, then we think about the long term being sort of 1 or 2 years, things could be completely different. And we're wondering why I didn't buy it at this point. And you look like you've picked it up at some really great levels. So you're absolutely right. It just depends on your time frame and your kind of psychology and which one you prefer.
Strongly agree. Let's take a look at our next pick from the audience. This is Soul Minter, and I look at this on Nomics. It may pull up on your chart or not.
Okay.
It's a Solana ecosystem project that peaked out back when Solana was totally hot and everyone was excited about Solana, and it peaked out just under 6 cents. It has now had a massive retracement. I'm a little bit concerned about whether they survive because some of the Solana ecosystem projects have gone belly up during this time period because it's been so long, and I don't know that they anticipated with their cash flows such a down market. That's definitely not it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a chart here, but it's not updated. It's got 29th of May. So I was just going to CoinGecko and see if we can get something on there.
Nomics.com will have it. If you go to nomics.com.
Right.
That top one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get all the data, and let's try and get that in a sorry, I'll reject that. Right. So let's just see what I'd like to see is a chart that gives me a log scale, because everything just gets compressed down. Right. Okay. It doesn't look like that's an option, but this is still an interesting chart. 8th of June. Right. Later. Here we go. So look, overall, the trend is still down. And from a technical point of view, we need to see this reversing out. So, that descending triangle pattern that I mentioned in some of the other markets, well, this is still in that series of declines. So these highs are still going lower. We've had the sharp move down. One thing in its favor is it has eased off a little bit. So normally we would have associated this move with a sharp move down to where I put the cursor here. So this move here would be repeated here, and it's not done that. It's just gone really flat. So that could be a positive sign, but it's a very small positive sign given that the trend is broadly negative. So for me, I still need to wait because of the overall trend, the overall direction is still down, and there isn't a reversal pattern as yet. But I think you might get a sort of little move down and then a short-term rebound, just because some of the other coins have been doing little sneaky technical moves like that, where the stops get hit and then it rallies back up. Again, I'm not confident that we've hit the absolute low as yet. I need to see a bit more evidence. But for me, it's a wait. But interesting one nonetheless.
Yeah, this is an extremely high risk project, especially at this point. It was always a higher risk project. In my position, I'm down on this. I have a couple million Soul Minter tokens, and prices have continued to drop. As not only did Soul Minter come out of, or Solana come out of the spotlight, but the market in general has dropped. And so these higher risk ones have been absolutely punished and devastated on their price. I'm looking, it is on CoinGecko now, and their fully diluted valuation right now is 59,000, not 59 million, not 590,000, but 59,000. So think of this as a total penny stock. The penny stock, it could go to like $1 and it could go to zero. So it's not like the price on Soul Minter is likely go to $1. Its peak was at 5 cents. If it goes back anywhere near that, that is an amazing return on investment. I would just capitalize that if. Now, I hold a bunch of Soul Minter. I did buy it before it went to 5 cents, so I made some profit. I took out my initial. I have actually dollar cost average some of that back in as it's gone lower, but I'm upside down on this one too. I did not expect the Solana ecosystem to be out of the spotlight for so long. And both Cardano and Solana have been out of the spotlight for so long. Cardano's been out longer. A lot of the third generation blockchain momentum went to Phantom and Avalanche, which is cool, but you see how it kind of cycles. And actually, some of it went to Luna, which y'all know kind of what happened to Luna as it crashed. So I expect, like you said, Paul, possibly it might turn around to Cardano even before the rest of the market. Cardano tends to run on its own cadence, and sometimes is an indicator runs up early with Bitcoin ahead of the rest of the market. So if the market is turning around, I wouldn't be surprised to see Cardano lead that charge, and then probably some sunlight coming back into Solana's ecosystem. And if this project survives and keeps plugging away, and that's a big if, then probably it will benefit from that run.
Great.
So one of our viewers suggests we look at deeper.
Okay, deeper. DPR, right? DPR. So is that deeper network? Would it
Yes,
be? Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Now this is interesting. This is really interesting. Now, why is it interesting? It's interesting because we've seen what's called a V low. Now, a V low is when the market is trading in a downward trend, tick. It hits a low very aggressively, tick, and then it rallies back up very aggressively. So this is a V low. Now, normally, what you would get is if we put the cursor here, you'd get a kind of mirror image of what's happened on the left to what's happened on the right. So in other words, it should have here consolidated and then gone higher. Now, with everything going down, I think it's fair enough that it's not been able to do that. But what it does seem to be making is a reversal pattern. So you've heard me say many times that we need to see a reversal pattern before we can talk about buying this market. Well, one particular reversal pattern is something called a double bottom. Now, a double bottom is when the market hits one low, rallies, hits another low, and then rallies, and then we are allowed to buy it. So this is all this stuff down here is what I'm using as a buffer to say that the trend has changed. Now, it doesn't 100% mean the trend has definitely changed. It's just that I would rather buy it when it's going up than trying to catch it because I don't know anything about this project. And I don't know if I'm catching a falling knife. So I would wait for it to do something like this rather than buying it while it's going down. So what's going on here is it's going sideways whilst the market's been doing badly, and it's got some really key clear levels to trade against, and that level is 0.05. So 5 cents, if it can close over 5 cents, it's a buy, and then I would use risk reward to place a stop. Now it depends on how much risk one wants to take. If you were very conservative, you put a very small stop, maybe at just over 4 cents. If you wanted to give it a bit more room, because sometimes the market can go up and then come down again, you might want to put it down here at 3 cents or just 3.5. But this is interesting. I mean, I still have to wait here, unfortunately, because the discipline is it's got to break through this 5 cents to confirm a potential low. But it looks more base-like than what we've seen so far. So that's a really interesting one to look at. I'd like to know a bit more about it. And just one final thing, we can see that there is a resistance point which was a support point around this 4 cents level. So it's very close as to why this might be technically influencing the market. So that's another reason to want it to get through that point before going long. But yeah, great one. Thank you for showing us that.
So I'm just taking a look at some of the fundamentals behind it. And so I'm looking at coin market cap, which shows a market cap of 50 million right now, a fully diluted market cap of 406 million. Okay, so that's an interesting number. That's not quite as low as I would love to see it. I like things on big discounts. Now, when it launched, it hit like 29 cents, at least at the point coin market cap started tracking it. And it's way down from there. So it's on a heavy discount. As to what expectation, it's taking a new approach, and it's got some comparisons to, what is the name of it? Helium miners. In that, I mean, I guess some comparisons. So it's an interesting combination of blockchain with hardware devices. So basically, if you connect this in between your computer and your network, it essentially acts as a VPN. And it enables you to allow to also share some of your extra bandwidth in order to earn some tokens. So it's a real new concept, and I'm unsure as to whether it will be successful. I would say probably, possibly. There's some different ideas competing for this type of space, and this having hardware attached to it is an interesting one. I don't know how it'll compete because I don't have a pattern to look at with this, but I do like cheap prices. It's cheap. I'm just going to wait to see how this goes on the trading. I don't own any of this yet. I'm looking for, I don't know, a really good price. There are a lot of things that I feel more confident at a better price now, and watching this kind of passively to see how it does.
Yeah, I mean, it could potentially, sometimes when reversals fail, it would make another low and then come back up again. The bigger the reversal pattern, the bigger the potential trend that follows. So sometimes you get a failure because the reversal pattern becomes even bigger, and which basically means we still have to wait for it to complete. Um, but whilst it's here, it could also, of course, go all the way back down here and into new lows. We don't know that for sure, but it's a good sign that it's trying to base out here.
Mhm.
So it'd almost be better if it did go down and then went back up again. And if it did that, then this area here at 5 cents would become even more important, having made the base take longer. So I think waiting for a bit longer just to see whether it does that would be interesting, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, the chart looks really appealing. And so I don't know at a fundamental level this one as deep as I know some of the other ones.
You can't know everything. It's it's
Right,
impossible,
right.
right?
And deeper network. So like I haven't tried it out. I don't know somebody who's actually tried their hardware. I know somebody that tried their hardware in the very, very early days and they were not pleased with it, but that was like V1. They probably have like V10, version 10 of the hardware by now. So hopefully it's working much, much better. And I just don't know enough, although I do like what you're saying about the charts and agree with you on that. Let's take a look at another project that has actually gone up recently,
Yeah.
and it had some interesting play. This is Freeway Token,
Yes.
and I covered this much more in depth in other videos. So if you check out the video history in the channel, you'll see a lot more on Freeway Token. A couple of videos where I went much more in depth on what this is all about, and the pros and cons, and the risks associated with this.
Yeah, I mean, this is again, I remember we talked about it possibly a couple of weeks ago, and really what we're seeing here is a compression of price, which will eventually break out and we'll get a major trend. So we could draw the low from here. We could also draw the low or the compression of the lows from here. But one thing that's going on for sure is the market is oscillating around this mid price, which is around a cent. And it's been doing very well considering the market has been down. It's holding its own. There's no major downward trend there. So I think given that it's moved up from here, which was November, this could be the beginning of a trend. Now we'd have to wait for a breakout. These lows are getting higher, but the highs, um, sorry, these highs are getting lower, but the lows are getting higher as well. So remember I was saying about how the market gets painted into a corner and then it breaks out. This could really continue for weeks, possibly months more. But at some point we need a resolution. So it's either going to be bullish or bearish. And I'd say it's 60-40 that it breaks to the upside at this stage, and that those odds could go up if it takes out this 2 cent area, and then any of these resistance points that it takes out, it just goes up for me. So I really like it. I think it's a range play for now. But it's interesting to see something that looks just completely different. And I think that's what we were saying about it before, that the fact that it was holding up against the rest of the market was an interesting sign. So sorry, I suppose I should say I'm still waiting on it, but I'm really interested in this.
Yeah, this one I bought up a lot over the past number of months. I have a very solid position on this, so I'm not accumulating more at the current price because I already have a ton. And so is it a bad price to buy? It's not as good as it was just like a week or two ago when it went down to 0.8 cents. And that's the hardest time to buy because it just seems like things will keep going down. So what I find is I take the tokens that I'm interested in and find a point that I'm interested at that price or below. And then I make my purchases based mostly on the fundamentals. What do I think about the project? What are the risks and what are the potential rewards? And so for me, this is very attractive. And as that price goes up, then I'll start taking profits out to hedge my risk, because this has huge potential to do really well, has huge potential at some point fail. And so the tokens, like, I will take profits as it goes higher, and so that I'm hedging my risk. So I really like it, and the project's really communicated well. When I have questions, they get back to me right away. They've really been amazing to interact with, and so I've liked that. But one of my concerns is that you can earn like up to 40% returns on your Bitcoin and USD and other things, and those rate of return is just so high. That actually is my biggest concern. It's also like really attractive, but wow, like those numbers, how do you sustain them, right? Anchor Protocol was giving 20%. Well, Anchor Protocol collapsed as Luna's UST collapsed. Now, this is a very, very different model from that completely, but that doesn't mean it can't collapse at some point. So as much as I'm very bullish on this project and I have a lot of money in Freeway Token, I have some in their superchargers, which if you watch one of the videos goes in depth. But do remember that this is risky. It can all go to zero. And so you've got to play your risk. Have I taken any money out of this so far? No. Do I plan to as the price goes higher? If the price goes higher? Yes, absolutely.
Great.
Let's take a look at our next one. XPNET.
XPNET. So XP Network, obviously, I'm guessing that there's not many others with that name. So let's just check that. No, that's not. It's not updated.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm looking at it just on CoinGecko. It is there if you can't find it there.
Let's just try this other one because the charts tend to be simpler to look at on this. Yeah. So here we go. Yeah, I think this is that's the 6th of June, but it looks yeah, so actually we should look at it on CoinGecko. Right. Right.
Not that one.
Okay, what happened there? XPNET. XPNET. Yeah, I thought that's what I clicked on. Right. So here we go. So this should be the chart. Let's put it on a logarithmic. Let's get some bars in there. Put it on logarithmic again. Yeah, so I mean, you could probably guess what I'm going to say about it. The trend is still downwards, and the trend is your friend, as they say in technical analysis, until the end when it bends. And it hasn't bent quite yet, but it is sort of hitting some very, very low numbers and flattening out. So I suppose that's a good sign that it's at least no longer going down at the same rate. But it's a very speculative buy if one wanted to sort of put some money in it that you could definitely lose and forget all about in a small amount. But it would really be, I would call this like a roulette trade where it could be red or black, and you don't know whether you're going to get your money back or not. So I'd rather wait rather than take such a speculative trade. But as I say, the negatives are the downward trend. The positives are that it's holding at least in a short-term range. And so this is usually the sign before the market tries to go back up again. But this is a sort of chart where you have to watch it every day. You can't look at it and just sort of walk away and come back in a month or two. It's got to be every day, because potentially if it goes down again, it's going to get squeezed much further lower. And so hence, for me, I'd have to wait until it's formed a clear base and is starting to move higher.
Yeah, I'm seeing if I can find what their ICO price was. Sometimes I'm able to find those, and sometimes I'm not. Because sometimes that gives us an indication of, will they just keep going down? Because though things often will drop below during this time period that we're in, will often drop below its ICO or IDO price. They sometimes only go down about 50% from whatever that price was. Let's see if it has it. It's not telling us. Well, darn it. I was hoping we could find that. Let me check one more place. Yeah, no. ICO high. Maybe this will have a token sale price at 2 cents USD. So it is currently, wow, down 85% from its ICO price. So its seed price, let's see if it tells us that. Okay, seed price, So it's even down half from its seed price, a little more than half from its seed price. So this is often close to the bottom if the project's going to survive. Now, XP Network is essentially a powerful NFT bridge, according to them, the world's most powerful NFT bridge. Now, this became really important during the time when NFTs were going crazy and Ethereum transactions were $30 to $80. Now, right now, Ethereum transactions are like $6 to $20. And so it's not on people's minds right now. When is it on people's minds? When prices are going crazy between NFTs and crypto projects. So this is one that I've continued to accumulate as the price goes down. And if it just goes up to where it was before, I'm going to make a really good profit. And just know some of these failed during the downturn. And so it's a risk. And this is why I diversify across lots of these projects, because I don't check them every day. I have a different trading strategy than Paul on that, and that I buy them, kind of set them to the side. And literally my take profit mark is often when I hear people talking about them a whole lot and how it's just going to keep going crazy. And then I'm like, oh yeah, let me check and see how much of that I have. Okay, so let me reevaluate where's my take profit 1, my take profit 2 zone, and I start taking profits on it. So it looks like a third of their supply is in circulation. Okay, that's fine. It's way, way down at these lows. Very high risk bet for high potential rewards. When would this come back into play? Well, as NFTs in the crypto space goes crazy again, and people are worried about the 30 or 60 or 100 or $200 ETH transaction fees, and they're really looking at swapping things between chains for lower transaction fees. And that's when people's minds would be on this again. Right now, the market cap's at 1 million with the fully diluted valuation at 3.4 million. So that's in the range where it gets really juicy if the market does turn around and say that market cap goes to 100 million or 200 million or 500 million. That's the potential rewards, weighing the risk that could go to zero. So do I ever bet like all on black? First of all, I never do go to the casino because the risk to reward doesn't balance out for me. I like things that have a better chance at succeeding than failing, or at least appropriate risk. Whereas if maybe it has a higher chance of failing, but if it does succeed, the chance for it going 10 to 100 per 500x are much, much higher. And so I like this one. I have a bunch of this, or I would be buying more at the current price. But like a very small percentage of my portfolio, because yeah, this is high risk. Could end up working out extremely well, and it could go to zero. All right. Let's take a look at our last one, Lena, which is a project I did hold some in. I no longer do.
Okay. Right. So Lena, it's amazing what the difference between a letter makes, doesn't it? So that that reminds me actually of something that we have in the foreign exchange markets that I'll share with you. And when you're trading in the foreign exchange markets, you talk to other traders, obviously on the phone and clients, etc. And because of the difference in amount between million and billion and how they can get confused over the phone, a billion is known as a yard. So a million obviously is a million, but a billion, when you want to buy a billion or sell a billion of something, it's regarded as a yard. So a yard of dollars is $1 billion. And that expression has made it into the if you've seen the film The Gentleman, they talk about half a yard or quarter of a yard, and but yeah, that's what they mean. A yard is a billion. So maybe one day we'll be talking about a project that's gone that way, which would be great. But yeah, but that's a foreign exchange expression that you know now. But with regard to this chart, the data's a little strange here, isn't it? I mean, we're seeing, I don't know if that's the exchange or
It's getting some weird data. These spikes don't show up in other places. Like I'm looking at it on CoinGecko, and these big wicks down.
Let's pop in there then and
I'm
have a
not
look.
seeing that. And
Hang on. Oh, I've clicked the wrong one.
it is, I think Lena's traded on Binance. He might be able to find it on Coin Paprika, but related to its Binance trading price. And you get a much more steady price than all those strong wicks down of what you were seeing.
Yeah.
Not that one. It was
No,
Linear Finance, Lena.
it was linear, right? It was the first one. Okay,
Yeah, that
there
one.
you go. Let's have a look, because I don't think it's going to change the chart too much, because it's still as interesting as it is very similar to the previous one in the sense that it has been going down. It's got near this price support. Actually, it's different in that sense that the other one was going down and it was in a major trend without any support. At least this has got some here, which is interesting. And it wicked down there and then is turning around. So, the train is moving. Can we jump on it here? I would say very, very speculatively, for a very small move, potentially back up to this level. Yes. So I would be but it would be throwaway money, like nothing big at all. But only because it's making a short-term move. Now, this is not something I expect to be higher, in a month or 2 or 3. I just don't know is the answer. But a very short-term buy is potential. And where it's wrong is if it takes this spike low out. If that takes out, then it's out, go or below this support here. So what I look for is parachute levels, as I describe them. So if I get into something, I need to know where I'm getting out. And like if I'm completely wrong about buying it here, then I know already in advance where I'm going to get out. And that means I won't just ride it lower, which might be a good opportunity to dollar cost average into it, but that's not something I do. And it's with money that you can afford to lose, so you're cool about it if it's going down. So yeah, this is actually quite an interesting one, and I'd like to hear what you got to say about it, because if you've got any fundamentals, that would help the cause, as it were.
Yeah, I was invested in this one, and it's an interesting model. Essentially, you could trade a little bit on leverage. So I had lower leverage abilities to trade on leverage. Now, I got out of trading on leverage a year and a half ago, and I just, made a decision, didn't put a stop loss in, and had a wick down. Like generally, I was right on the trend, but I got wicked out and got liquidated completely. And so I was like, well, shoot, I was right generally, but wrong a little bit. And I had a very low leverage long, but the wick went down enough. It just burned my whole position. So Lena was interesting because it actually rewarded you through using their system. It rewarded you for having some leverage. So often you're paying for leverage. So they do have a lot of ecosystem tokens that they give those that are using their platform. And so I thought it was a worthwhile venture to do it. And why I got out of it is because as the price went down, I had to add more collateral to the position in order to not be liquidated. And so I don't like selling when things are down. And so it forced me to close out other positions that I didn't want to sell when they were down in order to average in. And so I just would prefer like staking, like get something and stake it to earn more tokens rather than be using leverage, which rewards you for some tokens. But I wanted to try it out because that model was different. So that's why I got out of it. I mean, if you look at the project, I'm on CoinGecko here, and it's on bigger marketplace like Binance. And even with the big pullback, their market cap's at 42 million, which is very respectable considering how most things have pulled back. That's a pretty high market cap. Their total supply, they've got about a third in circulation, or specifically, they've got 36%. And you see, they peaked out with the rest of the market at 20 cents back in March and April of last year. And so we're down quite a bit from there. We're down 95%. So it's a good buy right now. I'm just not buying more of it because I prefer having something that's way down to 95% that I can stake. Not that I don't like this project. I do like it and I like the team behind it. I just don't currently own any. And that's just why I made the decision behind switching what I was into other projects that were down. And, but I still have good feelings towards the project and other things. I just don't own any presently. And I just don't like leverage. And I did have this, and it is nice that they allow you a couple days, even if the price goes down and you should be liquidated, to add more in. So I like that they don't just liquidate you, but yeah, in general, trading on leverage is not for me. Maybe sometime in the future, like 20 or 30 years. But I like spot trading because sometimes things go against you within the time frame that you're looking at. And for me, just being able to be more patient, I'm fine with, oh, shoot, I was wrong on how soon that would happen. Okay, let me wait longer because I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong on how this is going to do in the long run. But with leverage trading, you often don't have that capability. You'll get liquidated or stopped out, and then you got to re-enter the trade. And so it just doesn't fit my investing profile, trading on leverage. Though there's some people, actually only a few people, that make really, really good money trading on leverage.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, it works two ways, doesn't it? Leverage. It can work against you massively when things are going wrong, and you just get forced out. And that's why trading is a game of psychology. And yeah, it can work well when things are going well, but ultimately, yeah, it's dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it changes the favor kind of against you because when you're trading on leverage, essentially you're borrowing additional funds. So every day that you have your position open, it's ticking away at cost to you. Solino was kind of a different model in that every day that you had your position open, it was actually accruing benefit to you, which was kind of cool. But that's why trading on leverage, it kind of puts it back into the house's favor. So why I like crypto trading, every investment is a bet against the future, right? And why I like crypto is because this ecosystem the trajectory is incredible, which means if you're a blind monkey and you throw darts at a dartboard for your picks in the crypto space, and you say throw 20 of them and you diversify across 20 of them, because you're in a growth sector, possibly even if 19 of the 20 failed in 20 years, the one that didn't fail might be worth 500 times what you had put in. And so you're way, way up on your position. So I like to be where the odds are with you and that the tide is with you, rather than gambling where the odds are with the house, and with leverage where the odds are a little bit against you because of that, I like to take positions where the odds are for me, so that I might be wrong in some cases, but generally the tide is going to carry my boat to exactly where I want to be. Cool. That's all the picks from the viewers. If you have a suggestion of what you want us to look at next week, put it in the comments below. Please, just 2 picks per person. Really like it if you tell us what you liked about him. The person who suggested deeper gave some fundamentals with his with him wanting us to look at it. So thank you for that. It helps us understand what you really want us to look at with it too. So thank you for your suggestions, and look forward to your suggestions for next week. I know the crypto market is slow right now. Just know that good decisions made during these pullbacks lead to life-changing ones when the market turns around. And remember, no rain, no gain.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. The time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be cracking. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I'll follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.